Hi, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Carpe Diem Living the Podcast. I am your host, Shane Gitmed, and today I have someone by the name of Amber Renae, and she is here to tell us about her experience with holistic medicine. And I'm just so excited to hear her story because everyone's story is so unique, and I just love hearing about the benefits that it's occurred in their lives. So Amber, tell us about you and your experience with holistic medicine.
Thank you so much for having me, Shane. I'm excited to connect with you and your audience, so thank you. And I want to share my story firstly from a point of my entrepreneurial journey so that you can understand how I kind of tumbled into my holistic healing. So my first business was a fashion design label, which ended up being quite a global brand. We had 120 accounts around Australia and we exported to 5 countries and we dressed some of the biggest celebs at the time. That business was amazing until it wasn't amazing. My manufacturer went out of business, which caused me to go out of business. So I found myself, after working on something that I loved for 5 long years, I found myself having to end that business. I was bankrupt. I had basically worked myself to death. So I found out I had cancer. I had stomach ulcers. I was hospitalized. I had a nervous breakdown. I was on all sorts of anti-anxiety and antidepressant pills. And that was the first, my kind of first foray into at least holistic healing. Like I remember when I was going into my cancer visits, I used to sit waiting for my cancer appointment, smoking a cigarette and drinking orange juice because I knew nothing about natural medicine, looking after my body, even just general health and wellness. I mean, this was a long time ago. It was probably 20 years ago, but that was probably my first instance. So I remember I had like I had years and years of going back for cancer treatments and cancer checkups. It was very low grade. So, certainly not what most people, certainly not what you're thinking about when you hear cancer, but just years and years of having to go in for treatments and checkups until I eventually went to a naturopath and spoke to her about my particular type of cancer. And she was like, well, you have an estrogen dominance. We can put you on this one particular type of natural supplement that will support that. And and we obviously change my diet and quit smoking and all those sort of good things. And within 3 months, I went from being on quarterly cancer checkups to never having to, worry about cancer ever again. So that was sort of the first time that I was like, you know what, there's more to this whole healing journey than going to a doctor every 3 months and being told that, yes, you still have cancer. And that was the first time that I was like, I need to look into this, to have something so powerful and so effortless. She gave me one supplement to sort out my estrogen dominance, and as a result, I was cancer-free. So that was my first look at all of this.
Wow. Okay, that is insane that you had a cancer diagnosis to seeing a naturopath and it being gone. Like, I have never heard that before. I've known of people that have had cancer and it's reduced from like herbs and other things, but to eliminate it completely,
it was a very low grade cancer. So for anyone who's listening that's getting triggered by the cancer word, it was super low grade, like very, I can't even remember what the stage was. But yeah, it was, that was the first, and also I think at that time as well, what I've come to believe about all dis-ease and illness in the body is that that cancer was caused because of the business. I had literally worked myself to death. I had the psychological impact of that business is what caused, I firmly believe, what caused that cancer. Mm-hmm. That business needed to end, but I was so attached to it. I loved it like it was a child, which is a very damaging thing that I see business owners doing. I loved it as though it was a part of me, mm-hmm. and I could never have given it up, but it had run its time. It had served its purpose, and it needed to end, but I didn't have the courage or the conviction to end it. So as a result, the universe came in, caused that big breakdown, that big enough so that I couldn't restart it again. And if it was any smaller a breakdown, for sure I would have gotten out of bed the next day and I would have started it back up. But it was so diabolical and so catastrophic that there was nothing I could do but to end it. And, I believe that the cancer had come as a result of the last couple of years of running that business and literally, knowing that I needed to make a change in my life, but not having the courage to change it. And when I look at people who have cancer these days, I mean, again, this is a mass generalization, and I'm just talking about the people that I've known personally. They've had a similar situation, a long-standing situation in their lives, which needed to change, but they didn't have the courage to change it. And so the universe came along and said, cool, is this going to work? Will this help you change, make a change? Is this going to change your decision? And that's typically the catalyst to change.
That is so true. Everything you just said, I 100% agree, because just like you said, if you don't have the courage, sometimes the universe will just say, hey, I'm going to do it for you. So brace yourself. So
like, oh, this is happening. So
right.
do it yourself or get along for the ride and we'll do it for you.
Right. And you know what? I've seen it a lot with workaholics too. Like whenever you are attached to a certain job or a position, I see this in corporate America. I see this in so many different, and then it's hard, of course, when it's your own business, because when it's your own business, you don't get, breaks. You don't get, well, you can create breaks, but you're not clocking in and clocking out. Like for some people, it becomes like their life, right? And so that's why you get so consumed and you become a workaholic and you lose sleep and all of the crazy stressors that come with that. And you end up killing yourself over it because you can't let go. So, I mean, that's a huge lesson to be learned just right there with, working yourself to death. Like we have this mentality of, hustle and grind and, don't stop. But in reality, that is one of the most unhealthy things you can do to yourself because you're breaking it down. So that's crazy that had happened. And yeah, I believe the universe sends us signs all the time.
Yeah. And I've had another couple of, my second business was a fashion styling business. So I finished that business, then started another one, which was sort of like a one-on-one consulting kind of business. And this was as I was getting more and more into energy healing and energy work, and I can backpedal and tell you how I got into it. But that business actually ended in a similar thing to what people are experiencing right now. So just because we're talking about the universe and businesses ending, that business, I went from starting it within 3 years, I had two of the best contracts in the country. I was the fashion editor for a national glossy magazine and the resident stylist at our biggest radio and TV network within 3 years. And most people would work for 20 years and not get any of them. And then I was also a TV presenter for fashion TV. So I was living my best fashion life. Wow. And again, never have quit any of those jobs. They were my literally dream jobs. Every little fashion girl would dream of having any kind of work like that. And I had all of them. And the universe again came in and took both of them, took all of my contracts away. In the course of a month, I lost all of my contracts. As a result of the global financial crisis, the effects had finally hit Australia, and all monies for things like fashion and TV dried up. So, I see a lot of people going through a similar thing right now in their lives,
right,
due to COVID. And, I'm sure a lot of people are really questioning what is going on and what's your next step and what's going to come of all of this. And I'm here to let you know, this has happened to me twice now in situations that I would never have chosen. I would never have chosen to end my second business. And again, I'm standing here in my third business looking back going, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I'm not in that business. Like I would hate it if I was a fashion stylist. I would hate being interviewing celebrities. Like I would hate that life right now. But again, I would never have chosen to end it because there was so much ego and so much identity wrapped up in that.
Right. And you know what? And it's like when careers end like that, or when businesses end, the one thing I like to do is just look back and just be grateful for the experience. So yes, it may not have lasted as long as you would have liked, or, you couldn't keep it forever, but at least you got to have a piece of that dream of yours, right, to turn into reality. So, and just, like with COVID itself, so many people that were so fixated on their careers, and now all of a sudden their careers, either one, their trade isn't necessary right now, it's not considered an essential, or they're just completely stuck in their tracks and they just have to stay home. So and they don't have a choice. It's because of what's going on in the world. So it's crazy because we're talking about how COVID has affected, careers and businesses and jobs in general. And for some people, they're taking it as, you know what, I worked way too much, so I'm glad that I'm home now. Now people have more time with their families. Now there's people that have had this laundry list of hobbies that they've always wanted to do, now they can do them because they have the time. So it's kind of interesting, the approach that people take when all of a sudden they don't have to work, their job or their business. And they're like, oh, what do I do with all this time now?
And I believe COVID is the great awakening, and it's forcing us to all deal with our shit, because all the people who normally get busy, go, work all day and then go out and meet friends and have all these filters around them so that they don't have to feel what's really going on in themselves. Mm-hmm. They don't have to really assess their relationships. And so now COVID's taken all of that away. And now all you've got is you're just sitting with yourself all day long. And, as someone who's been on that journey, that's not a fun journey to be on. So the fact that all of a sudden having to sit and look at themselves all day long, I'm not surprised that people are having a hard time with this. I'm not surprised that relationships are breaking down, because, this is I feel like you're being forced to do the work, which, probably isn't real comfortable.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I love how straight up you are. You're just telling it how it is. So along your journey, the two businesses that had to end for you, and it turned into you needing to turn to energy healing. So tell us about your energy healing journey and just your overall holistic journey with that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess like when I, obviously following the cancer, I'm big into health and wellness. I, started meditating and yoga, acupuncture, like holistic healing. But it wasn't until I had a really bad breakup. I turned 30 and I was dating a narcissist, and we were, destined to be married. He used to threaten to marry me all the time. And I eventually broke up with him. And I remember going back to my home. I had this beautiful luxury apartment that I was never allowed to stay at. I had to stay at his house. And I remember eventually going back after about a year and looking in my apartment. I opened my fridge and I didn't know what I wanted to eat. I had no clue what I liked to eat, because he told me what I would eat for a year.
Yes.
I sat down to turn my TV on and I was like, wow, I have no idea what I like to watch, because he had told me for a year what I would watch. And so as a result of that, I developed interstitial cystitis. So that is basically like having a permanent urinary tract infection. So if anyone's had a urinary tract infection, you know that you need to go to the toilet frequently, and it hurts when you go to the toilet.
Yes.
So I had that permanently. So if you look at, I went to every doctor, every specialist, every urologist, everyone, and they all said there is no known cause and there is no known cure.
Wow.
So you live with a permanent urinary tract infection for the rest of your life.
That's
I
insane.
was 30 years old at this point. And I'm like, oh, no, man, I'm not having a UTI for the next 70 years of my life. No way. Yeah. And so I eventually found what I thought I was going to go and see was someone who was listed as a naturopath. That's how she listed herself. So I was like, cool, maybe you can help me get some herbs or something to at least ease the pain. And funnily enough, she wasn't really a naturopath. At least perhaps she studied in that, but she was now doing more energy work. And so not long after I had started going to her, she was just around the corner from me. That was one of the reasons why I went to her. Not long after I started going to her, she moved into a new practice, and that practice was called the Amber Healing Center. And so every week, me, Amber, would go to the Amber Healing Center and have a session together. And what started out as naturopathy very quickly turned into neuro-emotional technique. Have you heard of this before?
I don't think so. I mean, it sounds familiar, but I don't know enough about it.
Cool. Let me give you a really dumbed down explanation. It's really difficult for me to explain because it's an energy kind of thing, right? But basically how it would work with her as a practitioner, I would sit on the edge of her bed. She would hold my hand out and muscle test my arm. So, a muscle test, like she would ask my body things and then she would test them against my arm. And so she would muscle test certain emotions, and she would say, so she would sort of like run a trigger through my head, sort of tapping EFT points, like tapping through points, like Chinese medicine points in my body. And she would find a pain in my body, like a physical pain. And then she'd find a pain body, and she'd say, okay, what pain is this? And then she would muscle test through the pain. And then she would say, is it grief? Is it shame? Is it sadness? Is it guilt? And then she would name all these emotions. And eventually she would hit on emotion and my muscle would test, yes, that's the emotion.
Wow.
And then she would go in there and do kind of like sort of like a healing around it, but it wasn't like woo-woo healing as we've all done before. It was very methodical, analytical, and very quick. So she would sort of test this, find a charge, and then she would just ask my body how it got the charge. So it would say, is the charge from anyone you've ever loved or anyone who's ever loved you? And she would just muscle test that. And then it would be, say, anyone who's ever loved me. So that's mum and dad, basically. And then she would say, is it, maternal or paternal? Maternal. Okay, so it's from your mother. So there's a charge from your mother. Was that from this lifetime or past lifetime? This lifetime. Okay. Was it from 0 to 3 months in the womb, 3 to 6 months in the womb, 3 to 9 months in the womb? Is it from the first year, second year, third year? And she would literally just ask my body for when this charge first got established. And she would ask it. And all the time there would be a test, like there would be a time when my arm would go, yes, that's it. So my arm would push down as though it was registering a yes. And then she would then repeat the charge. So there's a feeling of guilt from your mother that you received when you were 2 years old. Find that feeling. And then she would just tell me to find the feeling. And a lot of the times I'm just going, I don't know what you're talking about, crazy lady. Like I've got no recollection of anything that happened when I was 2 years old. So a lot of it was, you were just kind of going, yeah, okay, sure. But then not every now and then, almost every session, she would say something like that, a charge when you were 2 years old over your mother because of this and this. And she has no idea. Like, we never spoke. It wasn't like therapy where I've given her a history of my life. She knows nothing about me, but she would just ask my body these things. And at least once per session, I would break down into the most hysterical, extreme fits of crying and pain and torment that, I've never experienced in my life. And it's like, what is that? Where did that come from? I have no memory of that happening. And yet I have the most extreme pain body that I've been carrying around in my body this whole time that, has been affecting my life and my relationships and everything. And so we would go through this and she would teach me to feel and experience the pain body. And so she would, she'd be like, experience it, feel it. And while she was doing that, again, she would tap Chinese meridian points along my body. And I would be in this pain, crying, experiencing this grief or like whatever the feeling was. And then within 10 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, it was gone. And I'd sit up and I would have no feeling left of it. I would have no tears left to cry. And I would feel like I was 10 kilos lighter.
Wow. So it's like a release, basically, just emotional release.
Yeah, it's an emotional release. So what I've come to realize, I did that with her every week for about 6 months or so, and we worked on everything. And now I've sort of morphed it into my own kind of system, and I do a version of that myself these days. So what I've come to realize is that I believe that experiences happen and we experience emotion. And if we experience all those emotions and they get used up, then great, they get experienced and we move on. If they don't, they get trapped in the body as pain bodies. And we then have this sort of like little round pain bodies all over our body that we need to experience and release and let go of somehow. And the only way to let go of them is to actually experience the pain that's in that pain body. So for me, that means tuning into that particular pain body, releasing that emotion, and releasing it means feeling it. How do you get rid of pain? You feel it. You
acknowledging it.
Acknowledge it. You experience the grief. You experience the shame. You experience the humiliation, the guilt, whatever that pain body was all about. You have that moment of feeling that emotion, feeling that sensation in your body, and then it's gone.
That's incredible that you discovered this, because I have heard a little bit about muscle testing and I've never gotten it done myself. I found out about it after COVID. So I'm like, okay, I need to get this done when I can as soon as possible, because because I already believe in, everything has energy, and doing sound therapy. There's so many types of therapy that most people don't know about. And it just comes with just research and just talking to different holistic medicine practitioners. And that I know is so powerful. And I mean, we already know that a lot of our emotions, and just like you said, you had no memory of, these pains, but it was in your subconscious and in your body. So even though you don't think about it all the time or anything like that, it's still stored somewhere. So and, when especially like as you get older, more things happen to you, more experiences that we have to work through, emotional traumas. So I feel like, that type of therapy, it should be done as like a maintenance for sure, because healing never ends. We are constantly trying to, it's health. Like we don't ever you're not fully healthy all the time. There's always things that you can, fine tune, especially when it comes to stress, because what person isn't stressed, especially right now in the world.
And I think that what I've come to believe about all this sort of thing is a lot of what happened to us in the first 7 years of our life, we then start carrying around and trying to recreate the circumstances to relive that experience so that we can correct that pain body. So we find that we're back into that, emotionally unavailable relationship. We're dating the same men over and over again because we're trying
patterns.
The patterns. Yeah, we're trying to relive that experience so that we can deal with the first time when it happened. So that's why, if you're seeing patterns in yourself, in your relationships, in what's showing up for you in the world, it's because there's something that happened to you in the first, first 7 years of your life is what the scientists say. But for me, like at this point, I'm finding stuff from past lives as well that's coming up that I'm like, that's not in this lifetime, but let's deal with it. All good.
Yeah, no, past lives. Oh, this is a topic I love to talk about because for one, I have yet to have talked about this on the on the podcast. So this is great. Okay. Yeah. So past lives. Okay. So you've learned about quite a few of yours, right? Because I've learned, I think 5 or 6 of mine.
Yeah. Do you have memory? I've got a couple of memories. I'm like, okay, I actually remember that happening.
I don't. See, that's the thing that I'm just like, man, I don't like, to me, I'm just so open-minded and interested in hearing about them, but I have yet to hear about one where I'm like, oh yeah, that seems familiar. So, but I have met people in my life where I'm like, I feel like I've known you forever. Like, I feel like we're so comfortable around each other and I barely just met you, but there must be a reason for that. So I always think to myself, like for those few in my life that I feel that way about, it's because I have a past life experience with them. Cause I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like, how could I have, I don't know, but that's just my belief with my own.
Absolutely. I believe that. And I think that the people that come into your life that are like that, obviously they're from a past life, like I think about my brothers. I have 3 brothers that I'm all super tight with. And I know for a fact that we've all done multiple lives in multiple, like there's one brother in particular who's like my ride or die in this lifetime. And we know, like both of us know, like we do this every lifetime, like in some iteration, at the moment we're brother and sister, sometimes we're lovers, sometimes we're mother, children, that kind of relationship. But we know like we have to do it together sort of thing.
Oh, and it's funny, the common theme in my past lives is that I'm always such a mother hen. Like I'm always the one that's like taking care of everyone and always just kind of like taking people under my wing. And I don't know why, I have this mother hen type aura and it just seems to keep happening. Like in the past lives I've known about, and now even with the closest people to me, I'm always the one that's like, I'm so tribal. That's like the word that's come up a lot with mine, is that I like to take care of the tribe. So I'm like, okay, that's not a bad thing. Yeah, that's so awesome that you had the past lives regression session done.
No. So the way that I found out about all my past life stuff is by doing this work, doing the neuroemotional technique. And so when I would ask my body, is it in this life or a past life? A lot of the times it was like this, it's not in this life, it's in the past life. And then through sitting and being so silent and being so still and also being so trusting, I think this is the key to this kind of work, is that you got to trust that it's legit. And the only reason that I trust that this is so legit is because I went to so many sessions at the Amber Healing Center and had so much, for the first 3 months of that, I was like, I don't believe what this woman is doing. She's not really counting down on my arm and counting down if I was 2 or 3 years old. Like I was a non-believer. All I knew was that I walked out of those sessions feeling better. So I was like, I don't know what you're doing in there. I don't know if you're hypnotizing me. I don't know, but I don't believe that you're counting down to when I was 3 months in the womb. I don't believe that. But there was so much mounting evidence that it just got to the point where it's like, dude, you can't not believe that this is what's going on right now. You can't not believe that, because I'd be sitting there on the edge of her bed and, thinking about something else. I'd be like, oh, my shopping list. I really need to go and get my shopping list. And then she would just say something and I would go from consciously thinking about, what I was going to do after this and what I was going to cook for dinner to being hunched over hysterical. And it's like, well, that's not that, like, there's something there. Like that's legit. That's not me making it up. That's not her making it up. That's my body going, this thing is for real.
And so,
yeah. And so as a result of doing all that work, I eventually started going, because I'd be in a charge and I'd be going, what is this from? Is it this lifetime? Is it when you were this? Is it when you were this? And I couldn't find the charge. And then I eventually started going, is it from a past life? And it would be like, yes, it's from a past life. And then, I've had a couple of instances of, really very, very traumatic events in a past life that I've still carried the guilt around with in this lifetime, as in like my husband sacrificed his life for me because of something that I did. It was either I stole or I did something wrong and my husband, and I had such guilt around, I could see him like being burned at the stake and me sitting at his feet going, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I've got like a memory of that. Yeah, which is, I know, that's I've never said out loud, but
does it show up in your dreams too?
No, thankfully, no.
Oh gosh. Cause I feel like for me, the way it comes up where I feel like it feels like a familiar memory is in my dreams. I feel like my dreams are so intense sometimes. And to me, that's like a sign, like, okay, like you're either thinking about something and you're tapping into something from before, because it'll feel so real. And so that's,
I've had some cool astral planing, which I guess has made me believe in alternate dimensions. Like I've had some moments of like hanging out with this brother, this ride or die brother. Like we've been hanging out on another dimension and I've been like, yo, like, where are we? Like, we're in your backyard. And he's been like, no, I don't live there anymore. This is where I live. And then he's motioned to this place that I'm like, okay, I've never seen, this is not something I've ever consciously seen on planet Earth. So like we were definitely on another planet.
Like Twilight Zone.
Yeah, like it was just like, oh man, this is the most magical thing I've ever seen in my life. Definitely not, this is not on Earth.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's another plane, right?
So you were going to, you were getting energy healing for how long? You said a couple months?
So I reckon I did with her NET I think I did every week for like 6 months, and we just worked on everything really solidly. And then nowadays I do it on myself as often as I need. So like literally I just did one just then. I just had something come up like an hour before this show. And so I just sat with myself and did my own little healing session. And I do it all the time now. I love it.
I need to learn how to do that, because I would love to be able to just like, kind of part of my self-care, right? Like when you're just feeling like, okay, I have some time to myself, and then you can just like take care of your needs that way. So, okay. Right. So is there any way you can explain it? Yeah, I know you can't physically show me, but like, verbally explain how you do that.
Try. I don't know that I'm great at putting it into words because it is such an internal process, but let me try and explain what I do. So when I feel like there's something I physically feel a pain in my body, I then go and sit quietly. Maybe I do a little meditation first, but I just try and tune into the pain. So then I literally have conversations with myself. I say, what is this pain? Is this pain about me? Is it about someone else? And I just use semantics. So what I found is that the subconscious works really well on semantics. So semantics means basically saying the same thing, but using different verbiage, using different words. So I would say something like, is this about you? Is this to do with you? Is something wrong with you? Are you okay with you? Is there something? And so I just keep sort of saying the same thing over and over again until I start listening for the answer. And this is where that trust comes into your intuition, because you'll get an answer back as to what's going on, but most people won't pay attention to that. We'll be like, no, that's crazy. That's not my intuition, or that's not my higher self. And we won't trust that response. So that's a big part of this, is trusting that your body is talking to you. Your body has the wisdom, and listening to that wisdom that's coming back. So that's sort of step one, is just sort of tuning in and speaking to it and asking, finding out what it's about. Is it about you? Is it about a relationship? Is it about something that's going on in your life? And asking as many questions. Like, I literally just sat and spoke to myself for like 20 minutes to be like, what is this about? Why do I feel like this? What is going on? And, you know, really trying to get answers, because obviously my higher self knows more than I do. So why don't I just ask it? And then when I find, okay, what's eventually going to happen if you ask enough questions, you'll eventually get to a point where you get that tightness feeling in your stomach, like that, oh my God, something's about to hurt. I'm about to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And so that is your entry point. So when you get that feeling, chase that pain. So what we've been taught to do as humans, when we get that feeling of like, something is about to hurt me, we shut it down, we turn away, and we never think about that ever again. And that's what we've been taught to do, because that keeps us safe. But in the subconscious, in the energy healing, that's not what you want to do. When you get that, like, I'm about to be in a lot of pain, chase that pain. So go into the pain, feel the pain, explore the pain, talk to the pain, try and embody the pain. And by that, I'm literally going, like, for instance, if I just found some guilt, I'd be like, what's the guilt? Am I guilty about this? And I just try and embody guilt, even if it just means saying like guilt, 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 guilt. And when I'm doing that, I'm getting much more emotional. I'm having a full experience in my body of, you know, being emotional. I'm crying, I'm heaving, you know, I'm holding my heart because my heart's hurting, like everything's hurting. And then in a matter of moments, that all disappears. And then I'm like, oh, cool. That was that. I feel so much better now. That's over. And then it's completely gone.
Wow. So it's basically like taking it head on, and you're just like, oh, we're going to work through this pain and get rid of it. And I love that, because you're basically nipping it in the bud before letting it, you know, just fester in your body, causing more ailments, more
cancer, or causing interstitial cystitis.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's so true what you said. Like, when we feel any type of pain or stress, we're taught to just be like, nope, we're not dealing with this right now. We're going to focus on whatever else. And that's what turns into everything else in our lives, where people get, you know, chronic migraines, or they have, you know, really bad anxiety. I have anxiety, and I'm always working on it and trying to figure out ways to work through it versus just ignoring it, because, you know, like you said, with COVID, you know, everyone's having to deal with their things now. And before, because we're so busy, we're just like, oh, we'll think about it later. We got stuff to do. And now it's like, nope, whatever we feel, you got to deal with it now, because what else is there to do? So no, that's so great that you found ways to do that. And I'm sure our listeners are going to be like, wow, I need to really try that technique of yours that you just mentioned, because I didn't even know you could do that. Like, I knew that you could, you know, go somewhere to see a specialist and they can do that type of thing, healing process, but to know that you can do it on your own, that I feel like more people will be able to work through their emotions, you know, faster versus waiting, you know, for an appointment or anything like that.
Yeah, waiting to have the money to afford it. I mean, this kind of stuff is expensive. Well, in Australia, it's expensive, but
same.
Right. So yes, it is something you can work on by yourself. I think what you need is the courage to turn into the pain, because I can tell you, you know, I've sat on the precipice. I can still remember a couple of times where I've sat and I've realized that when I open this pain body, it's going to be the most excruciating pain I've ever felt in my whole life. And I've sat on the edge of the precipice and been like, do you want to open this? Because this is going to be more pain than you've ever felt. And having the courage to be like, yep, I do. I want to open it, because I want to end that pattern in my life. I don't want this, whatever that pain body is causing in my life, I don't want it anymore. So step one is having the courage to want to experience that particular level of pain. Step two is trusting that when you speak to your body, you have to listen to what it's telling you, and trusting that what is coming back is the truth, and just believing in yourself and believing in your own wisdom and your higher wisdom, because, you know, most of us, it takes a long time to develop that trust with your intuition. Like most of us go, oh, that's not my intuition, or that's not my higher self. Like that sounds crazy. But, as you've heard already, like a lot of my stuff was from when I was 2 years old or 3 years old, which
Right.
to the common, the conscious brain, that is a crazy thing to talk about. So I guess they're probably the two things that you really need to develop if you want to have a go at it yourself. And, just it's a practice thing. Like I wasn't good at this when I first got started, but I just have practiced it to the point that I know that it's going to give me so many good benefits. So I just keep doing it until I'm good at it.
Right. No, that's so true. I mean, it's just like when you first start meditating or you first start doing yoga, it takes time to really get comfortable with doing that. And, healing comes in so many different forms. So I'm glad you found this. That way, COVID or not, you can still, do your energy healing when you feel like you need to at any given moment. I know I could definitely benefit from something like this. Everyone can. But especially when you are in tune with your intuition, I think that's so important. Because for me personally, not that I've always been super in tune, but whenever I had a gut feeling, I'm like, yeah, I can't shake it. So I'm just going to go along with it. And most times, if not every time, I made the better decision because of, listening to my intuition. So yeah. So I think once you're in tune with that, everything else kind of falls into place and makes it a lot easier for you. So yeah, listen to your intuition, guys. It's a real thing.
Real thing. And the way to develop that, I guess, is to firstly get quiet. So meditate, and whatever your form of meditation is. And for anyone who's just starting meditation, it's hard. It's not, you don't wake up and you're good at meditating. It's really challenging. And it's a practice that you need to, develop over time. And even myself, like I'm quite an experienced meditator, but if I don't meditate for a week, that you better believe that the next time that I try and sit down, I've got a monkey mind. Like I'm not instantly good at it again. So I think meditation, for people that are just trying to figure it out, I would definitely get an app, or I would, test out a whole bunch of different, techniques, like try some sound healings, look at YouTube to see what else you can find, try a mantra, because not all, not every meditation works for everyone. So if you're like, well, I tried that once and it didn't work for me, try something else. Because I really feel like meditation is the key to pretty much any kind of happiness in life. Like if you meditation is the entry point to controlling your mind. And once you can do that, you can basically create anything that you want.
No, I 100% agree. And our listeners know that the common theme on this show is meditation. And that just shows that regardless of where you are in the world and what your background is, meditation works. Whether you do it for long periods, short periods, throughout your day, it truly is a very powerful healing thing, and that you could do for yourself on a daily basis.
It's free. Well, it's not easy, but it becomes easy. And at this point, like where I'm at right now, especially with the level of chaos and disharmony in the outer world, my only happiness at this point, or my place of infinite happiness at this point, because a lot of my external happiness triggers have been taken away from me. So my biggest happiness in my life is my sitting in meditation. Like I am so happy. I'm so blissed out every time I meditate these days. Whereas before it was just sort of something like, oh, I've got to exercise and I've got to meditate today. Whereas now, because a lot of the things that were bringing me joy, I'm now no longer able to do. So this has now become the most joyous part of my day, my meditation. And it's something that it's the entry point to all other spirituality, intuition, connecting to your higher self, any of the things that we're talking about today. The entry point, the starting point, if you just want to get started, is meditation. That's how you get started in any of this.
Yes, no, I agree. It's definitely a good way to start with your healing, because I know for me personally, it's hard to sit still most times because I like to be busy and I like doing a bunch of things. But when I do sit there and I'm in tune, you do feel that peace. And especially when things in the world right now feel like a circus, feel like chaos, this is the best thing you could do for yourself. And I'm even creating in my office a meditation corner where it's just a corner of the room where I can just sit, be comfortable, put on my essential oils and just zen out. And I'm really excited about it because I know that, in the midst of my show and, just all the other things I do in the business world, it would just bring a lot of calm that we so desperately need. Yeah.
I moved into a new house and I have a balcony, and on my balcony I have an egg chair, do you know, like a swinging chair
Yeah.
in the shape of an egg. And so when you sit in that, I can get into like a little fetal position, and it's got like a really gentle rock on it, and you can feel the sun and a light breeze and hear the birds. And oh my God, the meditations in that are next level. Like I'm like,
Amazing.
the most beautiful time. And I put my sound healing on in my headphones, and it's just like literal bliss.
Oh my gosh. And that's a great idea. And I'm sure, yeah, a rocking egg chair. What is it? It's just like, so, oh my God. I'm like trying to imagine it in my head.
So imagine like a giant egg cut in half hanging by the roof. So it's got like a slight swing on it.
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh. That is so awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely going to take that tip when I have a balcony to do that on. Yeah, it sounds so cool. Do you want to tell us? Okay, so we talked about all about your healing, which I love your journey, and I'm so glad you found things that worked for you in that space. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your show that's coming out and where our listeners can find you online?
So I'm currently starring in Dream Life, the TV show, which documents the creation of my latest e-learning project. So I'm an e-learning expert. I have 4 courses that I teach people on my own platform. So on amber.courses, you can go there and learn a whole bunch of free training programs on mindset, a lot of the stuff we talked about today. I have another course on personal branding and publicity. I have another course on starting an online business, which I don't know about when is a good time to start an online business, but I feel like right now is the best time to start that online business, and how to build funnels and e-courses. And then I have another course, which is all about how to become a fashion stylist. So that platform is what, like creating that platform led me to land the TV show. So now I'm starring in a reality show that teaches people, it sort of documents the creation of a new e-learning platform. And that show is called Dream Life. And off the back of that, I've written Dream Life, the book. And the book is the Boss Babe's Guide to Turning Your Online Business Dream into a Reality. And that book basically documents everything that I've spoken about in my courses. So we talk about mindset, personal branding, building your e-course, automation and funnels, and then traffic. So social media, publicity, all those kind of things. So if anyone's even thinking about starting this whole online business, which really I feel like now is the time, I would definitely recommend starting with Dream Life, the book, which is super accessible to everyone.
Oh, that sounds so great. I'm definitely going to be checking that out because there's so much knowledge, to learn, especially, being a seasoned business owner myself, and mainly, online businesses. That's what really launched my career. There's always knowledge that I can take from learning from other experts. So that sounds amazing. And yeah, to anyone who's listening and that wants to do that, especially in the way that our world is right now, starting an online business would be a great thing to start right now, from home. Why not? You're already at home anyway, right? So
exactly. And I guess that's probably one of the other things that I see the beauty in COVID is that, yes, we're all at home, and yes, perhaps we have extra time to be able to learn these things. But, if COVID happened 10 years ago, there was no such thing as online learning. So you couldn't just turn and study an e-course, or you couldn't just go and learn from someone who's already done what you want to do. Like these days, it's so easy to just, like, for instance, if you want to start a podcast like Shane's doing, go and find someone who's teaching how to start a podcast and learn from them. And that's probably the biggest takeaway that I have in business is that, when I had my first 2 businesses, there was no such course that I could take unless I wanted to go to uni and study for 3 years, which obviously I wasn't doing because I'm an engineer. So I wasn't going to go back and study something else. So these days, starting a business or even just upskilling a hobby is so much easier because we are, you can go and do a whole bunch of online training programs. So that's the other thing that I'm thinking, well, it's maybe it's not so bad. Maybe a lot of people are going to start their businesses during this time.
No, it's true. And then people can find out, other things that they're passionate about, and they can be home more with their families. So I definitely am seeing the beauty of the situation, where people can have more time freedom. And that's what most people were lacking for years. And you and I are so, lucky and blessed that we had the opportunities to, work from home, be entrepreneurs with online businesses. But like you and I, we started before all of this stuff. So we didn't have, you know, the luxury of learning from experts. We just kind of had to figure it out, right? So, so take take advantage of these offers, so it can take away the learning curve for you. But yes, but oh my gosh, Amber, I love talking to you and hearing about your journey and how it's gotten you to where you are now. It all comes together, and I'm glad that, you know, these healing modalities can be used at any time, and you don't ever have to get so sick again, because now you know how to manage, and, you know, all the things that are going on with your life. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, is before you get really sick, you can heal these things on your own or with a naturopath. So amazing.
I agree.
Yes. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. Thank you, Amber. I'm so glad to have had you on the show. It's been a pleasure. And just like all of our other guests in the show, we have our Podcast Insiders group where people can connect with our guests and just say hi to the guests on the show, other listeners. So stay tuned for that, and we'll catch you all next time.